lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come.
Good morning. Welcome to the Sunday morning worship service of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church in Naperville, Illinois. I am Ann Ariano, a member of your Board of Trustees. We are glad you are here, whether you are present in the sanctuary this morning or watching remotely. It is so good to be together. We welcome you to our church and invite you to get to know us better after the service. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many paths to truth and meaning, and we support one another on our spiritual and religious journeys while holding ourselves in covenant. The rich, liberal legacy of Unitarian Universalism is rooted in our faith's 7 principles. These principles guide our faithful actions as we work to transform the world to be more just and equitable. As you may find these principles listed on our website or on the wall of our social hall. Whoever you are, wherever you are on life's journey, wherever you are in the world, you are welcome here. I have one more announcement this morning. How do your superpowers manifest themselves? The auction team hopes you are pondering some powerful items to submit, awesome social offerings, and that you will pop in with those homemade goodies for lucky bidders to enjoy. Stay tuned for the Superheroes Kickoff next Sunday for our November 2 through 5 online and live auction 2023. And today, we worship as a multi-generational community. Before we begin, let us take a moment to look around at those of us sharing this space. Let us recognize the hearts of our whole community, from our elders to our youngest and all those in between. Let us embody all of this church community, even when there are a few more wiggles and giggles and chatter. If you feel the need to move to a quieter space, feel free to do so. No harm, no foul. And now, please turn to one another if you are here. Please, in the chat, if you are online, and greet each other.
I light this chalice today for our Seventh Unitarian Universalist principle. We believe in the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
I'll call us this morning in worship with the words by a good friend, Tanya Marquez. It is now when we are called as witnesses of the world to mend it, to change its course, to restore it. It is now when we are called to act on our values. Not to hide, not to fear, but to be bold and loud. It is now that we are called to continue our fight for justice, to organize, to speak up. It is now. Let us gather. Let us give each other courage. Let us worship.
Please stand as you are able and join us in singing hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us.
Please join me in our covenant. We come together to affirm our relationship with one another, our shared commitment to our Unitarian Universalist principles, and to our DuPage UU Church community. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous in relationship with each other so that we might transform ourselves and the world. Our vision of beloved community is rooted in the relationships we have with each other, the world, and creation. Each week we share our joys and concerns. Today, our flowers were given by Cindy and Bob Wunderlich. The earth is beautiful in its wonder and magnificence. These flowers represent evidence of that beauty, and beauty indeed as we enter the fall season, maybe, finally. I have a joy for you all. Yesterday, I showed up at 9:30 in the morning to pick up my two children from a teen lock-in that happened on Friday night. And while I was here, the do-gooders were all over our property making sure that it looked beautiful and ready for autumn. So thank you, all of you who were here, who helped with the youth lock-in, who did some yard work. Thanks for making this place special. Whether our joys and concerns are shared here or held in our heart, this community is here for each other. Please know that you may reach out to myself or our pastoral ministries associates at any time for any reason, for a listening ear or maybe a meal. We're here to support each other. Please join me in a moment of reflective silence.
It is time to gather. Today I have a story named Call Me Max by Kyle Lukoff and illustrated by Luciano Lozano. When I look in the mirror, I see a boy. I see a boy with spiky brown hair. I see a boy with white skin that tans in the summer. I see a boy with one mom and one dad and two goldfish. I also see a boy who is transgender. Transgender is a long word, but it means something simple. Trans means going across, like how transportation means going from here to there. And gender means being a boy or a girl or a little of both, or not feeling like a boy or a girl. And when a baby is born, a grown-up says, "It's a boy," or "It's a girl." If a brand new baby could talk, sometimes that baby might say, "No, I'm not." And when a baby grows up to be transgender, it means that the grown-up who said that they were a boy or a girl made a mistake. When I was born, my mom and dad said, "It's a girl." And when I looked in the mirror, I saw a girl, kind of. But because I'm transgender, I wanted to see a boy. My parents thought it was cute when I put on my dad's ties, and I liked to sleep in my Batman shirt. And when they bought me a dress for my first day of school, I lost it. Well, I didn't tell them I lost it at the bottom of the garbage can. I wore my favorite overalls instead. And I thought school would be hard because I didn't know how to read. And I thought school would be hard because I wouldn't get to play all day. But school turned out to be hard for other reasons. And on the first day of school, the teacher called out our names. Emery, here. Stella, me. I raised my hand when she got to my name, and she looked at me, and then at the list of names, and then back at me, and I wondered if she thought my name didn't make sense for me. And I felt that way too. "Can you call me Max?" I asked. So Max is the boy in my favorite book. And she nodded and wrote it down. I won't tell you my old name. That's private. I had to go to the bathroom after snack. At home, there's one bathroom for everyone to use. And when I went to the store with my dad, I went into the bathroom with him. And when I went to the movies with my mom, I went into the bathroom with her. But at school, I had to pick which bathroom to use. When I went into the girls' bathroom, a girl ran out. She thought I was a boy. I didn't mean to scare her, but I did like that she thought I was a boy. So I used the boys' bathroom instead, but when I came out, I saw kids giggling and pointing. I decided to hold it all day and tried not to drink too much water, no matter how thirsty I got. Now, making friends was easy, but everyone asked if I was a boy or a girl. And I told my friend Teresa I wanted to be a boy, and she asked me why. Because I like climbing trees, I told her, and looking for gross bugs. She looked mad. I'm a girl, she told me, and we climbed the tree together, and I also caught more spiders than you did. Oh yeah, I said. Sorry, I forgot. But spiders aren't bugs, and I still don't think I'm a girl. I know spiders aren't bugs, Teresa said. Why don't you think you're a girl? Because I don't feel like one on the inside. So I told my friend Stephen that I might be a boy. I can't be a girl, I said. I hate wearing dresses. And he looked down at his dress and then glared at me. This is my favorite dress, and I like being a boy. Oh yeah, I said, I forgot. I'm sorry, and it is a pretty dress, but I still know I'm a boy. How come, he asked. Because I feel like one, I told him, on the inside. So one day, Stephen and Teresa came over to play, and my parents heard them call me Max. And during dinner, they asked me why. And I told them all about school, how I couldn't go to the bathroom, how I didn't like my old name, how I felt like a boy. So my mom and dad talked to my teacher, and we found a group for kids like me. Boys and girls and kids who weren't boys or girls, all of us were transgender. We talked about serious things like bathrooms and teasing. And we also talked about fun things like video games and books and toys. I don't know what my parents talked about, probably the same things. And I told my class that I was transgender. And the boys got used to having me in their bathroom, and the girls didn't want me in theirs anyways. And Teresa and I kept climbing trees and finding gross bugs, and I still didn't want to play dress up with Stephen. Some of the girls in the group gave me their old boy clothes, and I gave them some of my old girl clothes. Being a boy isn't better than being a girl, but being myself is the best. Let's sing to the children.
Ready, everybody? With love, we're glad you're here today to learn of love and peaceful ways, to grow in spirit, heart, and mind, and be a light to humankind. And with this chance to share and meet, let's share some stories, you and me, of what we've learned and what can be, and how to serve humanity.
Yes, Vera is ill today, and we have no backup pianist, so thanks for going with the flow, everyone. Giving of our treasure is how we reciprocate the many, many gifts that we are given by this community. Your contributions support the programs and operations of DuPage Unitarian Universalist Church. Giving is also how we live our values in the world. Each month, we share our offerings with an organization nominated by the congregation and selected by the special offering team. During September, our special offering will benefit the Alive Center of Naperville, nominated by DuPage member Dean Reschke, who was a founding member of the Alive Center. The mission of Alive is to be a teen-led, teen-driven center focused on empowering the youth of today to become the impassioned, resilient leaders of tomorrow. As a nonprofit organization, they offer free drop-in hours after school and over the summer, as well as a myriad of programs, classes, and events designed to build confident and resilient teams. You can visit them online at thealivecenter.org. This morning's offering is to support the work of the church and the Alive Center here in Naperville, and it is given and received in a spirit of generosity and gratitude.
Our reading this morning is Troublemaker Blessing, which was adapted from Laurie Stevens and Cody Hooks. We are the holy troublemakers, the mystics and misfits, the doubters and devil worshippers, the Afrofuturists and magical realists, the so-called heretics, heathens, and hedonists. Hell, even the kinks and Trekkies fit under this sparkly umbrella. No category can contain us. We're basically everything else. We are the pesky shadow sewn to the feet of all great traditions, teachings, and institutions. We embody the internal unknown, the stubborn mysteries, the uncontrollable forces of nature. We are human prisms, breaking plain white light into a riot of color. The monsters under the bed who remind you that there's as much to be learned from the sacred darkness as there is the light. We are the mischievous seekers who demand to know why, how come, and what's the point. Our only doctrine is that no truth is the whole truth. No way is the one right way. We celebrate the queers, the forbidden lovers, the shapeshifters, the box breakers. Thank you for creating the unimaginable just by being your outrageous selves. We celebrate the pagans, the witches, the folk healers, midwives, and death doulas, those whose allegiance is first and foremost to this dirty, bloody, beautiful planet Earth. Thank you for keeping humanity's feet on the ground and our eyes on the stars. We celebrate the atheists, agnostics, and non-believers. Thank you for laughing at the powerful and for doubting absolutely everything with such gleeful fierceness. We invite all to plant the ancient seeds of questions. May they bloom into fabulous futures. Bless the world with your unique imperfections, your change, your holy failure, your sacred resurrections. May you wake every morning with stardust in your eyes, O little universe. May you love forever.
So this morning we have a change in the order of service, in that the hymn number 1017 does not have an electronic accompaniment. We will be singing hymn number 1028 in the Teal hymnal, The Fire of Commitment. And there will be no introductory piano phrase.
We're not sure if there's an introduction or not. So
Okay.
try to go with the recording, and we're going to guess together. We're not sure. That is an introduction.
Thank you.
did great. You know, at my church, we say we strive for authenticity and connection, not perfection. And I think we're doing it. It's great. Y'all are awesome. Good morning, friends. I am so happy to be with you on this Sunday. As an aspirant for UU ministry and in my role as coordinator for congregational activism at UUSC, I have preached in a lot of different UU congregations. And let me tell you, each congregation does things a little bit differently, which makes sense. I mean, we UUs are kind of known for loving to argue and disagree about practically anything. There are even UU jokes about it, and I'm going to actually start this by telling you some of my favorites. A Unitarian Universalist died, and to his surprise discovered that there was indeed an afterlife. The angel in charge of these things told him, "Because you are an unbeliever and a doubter and a skeptic, you will be sent to hell for all eternity," which in your case consists of a place where no one will disagree with you ever again. Joke number 2. Visitors on a tour to heaven noticed a group of Unitarian Universalists who were arguing about whether or not they were really there. My third and final. A visitor to a Unitarian Universalist church sat through the sermon with growing incredulity at the heretical ideas being spouted. After the sermon, a UU asked the visitor, "So how did you like it?" "I can't believe half the things the minister said," sputtered the visitor in outrage. "Oh, good, then you'll fit right in." Honestly, I love pretty much all UU jokes, but especially the ones about how much we love to argue and disagree about things, which I think y'all are right there with me. We have 7 or 8 principles and an infinite number of ways to interpret them. We agree on a lot, but we love to get into the nitty-gritty about what we aren't so sure of. And I think we can all agree that as a faith, we actually love being unsure. We lean into it, and that is a beautiful thing. We understand that we're learning and not a learned faith, and that healthy disagreement produces growth and keeps us from being dogmatic about things that we, and in fact no one, can know for sure. However, there's one thing that solidly connects all UUs. As I said, I've been to UU congregations across the country, and none of them worship the same. The people all interpret the principles and sources differently, but in every single congregation, there is a chalice, and that chalice is lit to begin worship. Now you might be thinking, I thought this worship was going to be about how our faith calls us to support our trans beloveds in these times of fascist threats against their humanity. The chalice and UU jokes don't have anything to do with that. Well, first, to come full circle, I disagree. And second, I promise I will explain more, and maybe something that literally has never happened in a UU service will happen today. You will all end up agreeing with me. It is the chalice itself, the very thing that binds all UUs together, that most strongly calls us to work for resisting the criminalization of our trans and gender-expansive beloveds. You see, our chalice, as sacred as it is to us, wasn't always the symbol of Unitarian and Universalist faiths. In 1940, Reverend Dr. Charles Ryan Joy was sent by the newly created Unitarian Service Committee, the predecessor to the current UUSC, to Lisbon, Portugal, which was the only open port in Europe at the time and was the preferred port for the many refugees that were fleeing the Nazi regime. Many of the refugees had to flee without any of the identification that was required to cross borders. So Joy decided to start making identification papers issued by the USC itself. This was uncharted waters, but instead of focusing on the risks that he and the organization might be taking by doing this, Joy focused on saving the lives of those fleeing fascism. He also decided that these papers needed a seal to look as official as other travel papers. And so he asked artist Hans Deutsch, an Austrian refugee working in Lisbon, to create one. And the result was the basis of the flaming chalice as we know it now. While this was happening, also, Waitzel and Martha Sharp were also sent to Europe by the USC And they not only falsified documents to get people out, but also laundered money if necessary. So you see, the thing that binds all of us together, the chalice, was founded on our commitment to human rights and to fighting fascism. Since the founding of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, we have been committed to supporting the work of liberation, even when, and maybe especially when, it involves making holy trouble for the powers that would deny anyone's full humanity. Okay, y'all, let's take a quick breath because this is where we get into some of the heavier stuff. No more jokes. I want to invite you all as we go into this time to do whatever you need to do to care for yourselves and stay grounded as we proceed. If you need to stand up and stretch, walk around, look at your phones, yes, even that, I promise I won't be insulted. Talking about the present nature of fascism in our country can be incredibly triggering for anyone. To my trans and queer family in this room, this invitation especially goes out to you. I love you. To understand what fascism is, I want to reference the work of Jason Stanley, who is the author of How Fascism Works, The Politics of Us and Them. Stanley is a professor and scholar of philosophy and propaganda at Yale. He describes fascism as an ideology, but also, and perhaps more importantly, as a political method. Not all who use fascist tactics are ideologically fascist. We recognize fascists less by their beliefs than by their methods. I'm going to share Stanley's overview of the 10 tactics of political fascism. What I'm sharing with you now is taken directly from Stanley's work, at times word for word from a video lecture he gave titled The 10 Tactics of Fascism, which is available on YouTube. I recommend watching this video even more than once. Stanley opens by explaining that these 10 tactics are bundled, that they can't be isolated from each other. So the first tactic is a mythic past. Fascists always present the idea that there's once a glorious path or past. In politics, this is presented in the idea that we were once a great nation. Notice the past tense. And when we were great, the dominant racial group ruled over others. But now that's been taken away, not lost by our own actions, but taken away by some group designated as other. Jason Stanley says fascists are always telling a story about a glorious past that's been lost, and they tap into this nostalgia. Because the truth is messy and complex, and the mythical story is always clear and compelling and entertaining. It's hard to undercut with facts. The second tactic is propaganda. All social movements and all politics use propaganda to persuade. Fascist propaganda, however, makes a distinction between friends and enemies. It casts the other as a threat and presents the idea that these others are fundamentally opposed to the nation. Tactic 3 is anti-intellectualism. Authoritarianism presents a cult of the leader. In a fascist system, the leader and only the leader sets the rules about what is true or false. So we see the takeover of a country's media, schools, cultural institutions to enforce what the leader says is true. Institutions that teach multiple perspectives on history always threaten the leader. Expertise is also always a threat. Science is a threat. If intellectuals are telling the truth, they are the threat. So anti-racism, critical race theory, definitely a threat. 4 brings us directly to the next tactic, which is the creation of a form of unreality. The scholar Timothy Snyder talks about this a lot, the destruction of notions of reality. Authoritarians undermine what we know to be true and convince the population that A, everyone is lying, and B, the lies don't matter. In political terms, the center of democracy is truth. You cannot function as a democratic citizen if you are being lied to. Jason Stanley says, if you're going to rip the heart out of democracy, you get people used to lies. The 5th tactic is hierarchy. Hierarchy is absolutely central to fascism. It is the big lie at the center of things. White supremacy, male supremacy, abled supremacy, these lies assign people superiority and the privileges and benefits that go with that superiority. And hierarchy goes right into victimhood, the sixth step. Once you have convicted people that they are justifiably higher in the hierarchy, then you can convince them that they are victims of equality. Fascists tell people that equality is victimizing them by making them lose their rightful place or power. Stanley says the goal is to make people feel like victims, to make them feel like they've lost something and that the thing they've lost has been taken from them by a specific enemy, usually some minority outgroup or some opposing nation. According to Ajaris Dixon, writing in Truth Out, fascists believe that democracy has failed them and allowed the majority to be tyrannized by communities that have no right to power. Therefore, fascists seek to eliminate both democratic processes and marginalized communities to return to an often fictitious and glorious past where their power reigned unchecked. The seventh tactic is law and order. Under fascism, the definition of law-abiding means loyalty to the dominant group. Members of the dominant group, by their very nature, are considered law-abiding. Marginalized groups are seen by their very nature as not being law-abiding. And law and order has nothing to do with justice or equality. Law and order structures who is legitimate and who is not, and law and order will ultimately be enforced by violence. The fascism scholar Ruth Ben-Ghiat reminds us that the essence of fascism is violence. Tactic number 8 is sexual anxiety. In every case, across different cultural and historical settings, the fascist leader will always say, your women and children are under threat. You need a strong man to protect your families. Fascists make conservatives overwhelmingly terrified of transgender rights and gay, lesbian, and bisexual people and their families. According to fascists, these targeted groups are not simply trying to live peacefully their own lives, they're trying to destroy the majority's life, and they're coming for the majority's children. The ninth tactic, Sodom and Gomorrah. Fascist movements typically rest on an urban-rural divide, and fascists use the toxic trope of the biblical story of Sodom and Gomorrah. In this trope, pure, hardworking, real members of the nation live in rural areas where the work happens, but when politicians talk about inner city voters or urban voters, we all know they mean black, queer, immigrants, Jews, and other people that fascists seek to control or eliminate. And the 10th tactic is what Stanley, a child of Holocaust survivors, called Arbeit macht frei. Work shall make you free. These words were hung over the gate at Auschwitz. Fascists create an idea that minorities, immigrants, and others are lazy, that these groups need to be taught a work ethic. The mechanism they use is forced labor, whether it's prison labor or work requirements for benefits. The targeted groups must provide free labor as a supposed moral education. According to fascists, labor unions are supposedly run by communists who are trying to make things easier for these lazy people. College students who protest conservative speakers are described as lazy, spoiled kids who need to get real jobs. The thing is, the end game in this calculation is evil. Valuing people by how hard they work means that the elderly, disabled, and even children can become disposable. The Nazis murdered these groups first because they believed that those who could not work had no value. Is it any wonder that we are now seeing the repeal of child labor laws in this time of rising fascism? So those are Stanley's 10 tactics, so the very long quote is over. And I just want to invite us to take another deep breath after that. Maybe move your body a little bit if you need to. No doubt you recognize many, if not all, of these tactics at work today in the United States. Currently in the US, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric and legislation seems to be one of the few issues that brings disparate factions of conservatives together, and right-wing politicians are leaning in hard. 38 states currently have anti-transgender legislation on their books, with the number of new bills growing daily. The ACLU is currently tracking 492 anti-LGBTQI bills that are in process in various state legislatures, including my home state of Massachusetts. So it's not like there's safe spaces. Most of them are anti-trans laws. The lies and misinformation surrounding these bills are abhorrent. These bills are trying to legislate trans and queer people out of existence. Please know this is not hyperbole either. We know that's the ultimate goal because we've seen the plans from some of these groups. Because of these laws, trans people in the United States now meet the definition of internally displaced people, or IDPs, according to the United Nations. Hundreds of thousands of trans people and their families have already fled their homes to safer states, with more than 1 million considering doing so, according to a recent Data for Progress survey. Let's take another breath. There are so many questions we can ask ourselves in light of the current situation. What do we do? Who do we want to be? How do we resist and find joy even in these times? I think many of us have looked back at times like the Holocaust and have thought, if I was there, I would have done something. Well, folks, we're there. What is the something we are going to do? What is the something that you are going to do? Earlier this year, an organization led by Indigenous trans activists approached UUSC and asked if we could help trans folks relocate to safer states. They saw the work that UUSC has been doing with congregations and supporting asylum seekers and wondered if the UUs had the networks, infrastructure, and desire to support a different kind of asylum seeker, ones driven from their US-based homes and communities. In this work with trans activists, we are in an interfaith coalition with Quakers, Jews, Mennonites, the United Church of Christ, and more. We're exploring partnerships with mutual aid networks, anarchists, and anyone else who is saying, no, I won't let this happen, not on my watch. We're working together to create networks of safety and direct support for trans beloveds and their families who need to relocate, who need to access health care across state lines, or who are deciding to stay. Because of safety concerns for these trans organizers and the people they're serving, we are prioritizing their security above all, which is allowing us to move together in deep trust during these crucial, frightening times. This is why we're not sharing any names of organizers or passengers, or spreading the news of this work on our websites or social media. I actually had a call with a UUSC board member and she didn't know we were doing this until I talked to her. That's the level of security we're working at. Similar organizations and trans organizers are regularly experiencing doxing and other violent threats. We want to delay our partners becoming a target for as long as possible. And this also creates a challenge in mobilizing UUs and like-minded justice lovers. Our requests for assistance have been through networks that are trusted and somewhat closed. So that's why I'm bringing it today to you here. And there are 3 really important ways you can get involved in this critical work that I want to mention. First, get involved as a volunteer. We're looking for people to be part of a village of support. We need hosts to offer space in their homes, and we need volunteers to provide support in navigating government programs, accessing health care, finding employment, and establishing social connections. We're especially looking for trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive folks in safe states, or safer states, who may be willing to act as travel companions, not physically, on the legs of the journey for those moving. By joining forces, we can provide a safer exodus and a welcoming community for those settling in our area. Make a gift. These efforts to support our trans beloveds require financial resources. Your contribution will help us address the practical needs of those seeking sanctuary, respond to their immediate needs, and set them up for success in their new lives. If you're interested in this, I can give you some information. My church, the First Parish in Malden, which we lovingly call the Very Queer Church because 4 out of 6 of our employees are trans, has offered to act as fiscal sponsor for the network we're working with. 3, and I know y'all are already doing this, skill up. We are all in different places on our justice journeys. Some of us here are trans, are gender expansive, queer, and this is our lived reality. Others of us may be new to the wonderful world that awaits beyond the gender binary. For those of us who may not fully understand all the terms and complexities of gender and maybe worry about not knowing what to say or saying the wrong thing, I urge you to lean into that discomfort and support these individuals anyway. Explore resources that increase your competency in this arena. Reach out to me if you need any ideas. Pretty much nothing would make me happier. And of course, join us during the adult RE programming between these two services, where you can learn more about this work and how you can do your particular something in these times. Friends, the forces of fascism in our nation and in others around the world are only going to grow more brazen in their quest for power. It is up to us to pay attention, to disrupt the violence, and remain true to who we are as a justice-loving people of faith. As the late John Lewis advised, do not get lost in a sea of despair. Do not become bitter or hostile. Be hopeful. Be optimistic. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get into good trouble, necessary trouble. We will find a way to make a way out of no way. So I'm calling all holy troublemakers to join us, to rise up and say, we will not fall in line. We will not let this happen. We will make so much holy, troublesome noise that we will drown out the sounds of hate and fear and fascism. Together we can and will find a way out of no way. Now is the time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Amen, Ashe, and let it be so. I don't know how to do it.
Please stand us, or please join us in standing and singing a great song, which when I was a kid, you had to sing it like this. You ready? If you want to sing it with your finger up, that's your commitment. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Building up a world, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
That's our gleeful enthusiasm.
For our benediction, I'm using words by Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it towards justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Thank you all.
extinguishing the chalice words. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the light in our hearts. Until we meet again, may the warmth of our community carry you. Please join us after for coffee hour, and then bring on in and have some adult learning.